Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. This is our episode number 2 on the Nothing But the Game podcast, Devy highlight exclusives. Clearly, name still pending, but thank you all for listening. And once again, I've got Matthew here with us. How's it going, Matthew?
Doing well, Evan, and I personally think that that name is a winner. So,
I I will go back and watch this recording so I can remember it and
mhm.
get it spot on for next time. Show notes, I'll put those in there. Yeah, thank you everybody for checking in. I know last week we had last video we had just gone over pretty much the 2023 prospects, our favorite ones that we're looking forward to, the top 10 of each, and that was awesome because you brought some guys that I'm familiar with, but and in regards to like favorite guys coming out of the draft, may not reach a lot of those lists. So I loved going through that, and it was tons of fun. And today
Yeah.
we're going to do something kind of similar, a little bit more hypothetical, seeing we're situationally based. We finished the week 6 of the NFL. And so we're going to kind of put like a timestamp. If the draft were to start today, records, pending all those things, who would have the number 1 through X pick? Where would some of our favorite Devy guys go? And we're just going to assume every NFL team needs a fantasy relevant player, tight end, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, any of those. We're throwing defense and other the big uglies to the wind. So you ready to maybe get this rock and rolling?
Let's rock and roll this thing.
Heck yes. So I'm sure probably everybody could guess right off the top of their heads. We'll just start right now. The number 1 pick, if it were to start today, would be the Carolina Panthers. Could there be a more hot, tasty team to be tossing out wide
Delicious.
receivers, trading them away, getting rid of coaches? Quarterbacks are just down and out. So
Yeah,
yeah, what do you think they'd be feasting
that's
on in this buffet of players?
yeah. I mean, they're the number one, and yet they're the one of the most difficult because of
Yeah.
what you just said. So, I mean, you've got every need on the table. There's a solid chance that they're going to get rid of Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
You've got DJ Moore, but there's people clamoring about him being traded as well. So as of right now, obviously, if this video comes out the beginning of November, then it may be a different story because at that point in time, trade deadline's closed.
That's what's great
We'll
about
know.
kind of
Yeah,
looking at it now because yeah, like you said, that deadline is a big factor
but
for all
but
these
as of
teams.
yeah, but as of right now, the fact of the matter is they've got a ton of money tied up in quarterbacks. So
Mm-hmm.
realistically, if I was going to say what would they draft, I'd say a quarterback. But
And
when
just
you've got
offload all that extra
two,
money.
but yeah, but when you've got two that are being paid as starting quarterbacks, I mean, I guess theoretically, yeah, you can still draft one, but then you just got two guys sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't trade them and get rid of those contracts, you just got two guys eating up a massive amount of cap space at that
And you
position.
got the quarterback you just took the last year that you were super
Yeah,
excited about.
yeah.
It's
So I'm going to toss that out the window. I'm just going to say right now that they would not be drafting a quarterback because of the
okay.
the predicament that they're in. Even though I think that probably would be their best bet.
Yeah.
They got, but then at I almost said they got Josh Jacobs. No, that's the next team. Um, no, so they've got Christian McCaffrey right now. They got DJ Moore. I'm just going to say that they cut bait on everybody, and we're looking at a clean slate
Yeah.
beginning of next year, and they get a bunch of picks and all that good stuff. Um, if that's the case, I mean, you kind of have to, if you're not going to be doing a quarterback, you, in my mind, you kind of have to be looking at running back to start rebuilding your team because there's so much depth at every other position.
Man.
Um,
Go up number 1 pick running back here.
I'm just saying, if you're looking at building your franchise around a player, I know they had Christian McCaffrey, and he's about as good a running back as we've seen in a long time. Snag yourself up Bijan Robinson, man.
Some tasty
Build your team
Bijan.
around him. That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
If they're not going quarterback because of what their predicament is right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say build your team around Bijan.
Man, and I would, obviously he's the to me he's the best player on this board available. But throwing some of that money as a number one overall pick on there could be interesting. We haven't seen a whole lot of running backs go in the top 3, but when they
Yeah.
do, they have that they have the worth on there. You're
Hmm.
clearly, it's almost like a can't miss. Like, well, we really can't miss, because then it puts you way behind the 8 ball. I'm going to take the QB route on this one, that they
Yeah.
will kind of go that QB realm, and this is going to go based off of, I'm not putting my favorite players in there. I'm going to kind of go based off of what I think they would do, and as much as I don't think he's the number one overall QB, I think they would go with a CJ Stroud like guy, because I think they're seeing what other teams are able to do. And with a guy who can run and be mobile and move around, and I think they're going to want to, the NFL is that copycat league. They're going to want to see what's like, oh, who can I get? And Bryce Young is just a little too short on that realm. I'm wondering, and they're wanting for that overall size, arm power, arm strength, and ability. That's
Then why
probably
not
where I
just
think they
go
would end up
Hendon
going.
Hooker? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Hey, whoa, hey, maybe if we get far enough into this episode, we maybe we'll be talking about that.
That guy just
So
looked incredible this last Saturday. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, he was tons of that game period was tons of fun to
Yeah.
watch.
But I see what you're saying. No. And this is the way that the college game's going to be, I think, for the foreseeable future, maybe forever. Dual threat quarterbacks are kind of becoming the new norm in college for the most part. You still got your pocket passers that succeed, like your Justin Herberts and Joe Burrows, that come out of college and are highly drafted. Trevor Lawrence, who is a little bit mobile himself, and Joe Burrow's a
Yeah.
little mobile,
Oh yeah,
but they're
he's
not they're
mobile.
not Lamar Jacksons or Jalen Hurts. Um, but I think most top drafted quarterbacks tend to be that dual threat style now. Kyler Murray's, because you see how much it can stretch a field, how much defenses have to scheme for it, and kind of respect that.
Especially on the I mean, it's what you're looking for on the fantasy side of things too, because of
Yeah.
those, just the
Hey,
stacking of
I'm a
those
Jalen Hurts
points.
owner myself, and I gotta
So
tell you, it tastes real
no,
good.
it's tasty. And even if you guys getting guys out there that, the Josh Allen, where you're just, I mean, obviously able to run, do whatever you
Yeah,
want. You have to manipulate the field. So if we were to
that's
go
top
next
tier.
pick on here, you'd have the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah,
Oh, you're supposed to
yeah.
catch me on that. Vegas Raiders.
Oh, Vegas. Yeah, sorry. Well, it's because it sounded right to me.
It does. I had a slip up last week. I was with the old Commander's old name. So
Yeah,
some of these
these
name
teams need
changes.
to teams need to stay
This
put.
this one is interesting to me, and I'll take the head on it, because in reality they don't need offense.
Hmm.
If they're at this high, I don't see them taking offense. I think maybe if they're further down the board, in which I
Hmm.
think this isn't going to be where they are. They will be making their
They'll
way
win.
up a little bit and making a push, I think, to make a wild card bid. But in this situation here, being that number 2 overall, if they were forced to go offensive player, this is the earliest I would see that Bijan going, because
Interesting.
they are not dedicated to Josh Jacobs. We see that with the Zamir White edition, and I don't think, clearly too, and they had brought in Kenyon Drake. There's still some form. I know there's different coaching going on at this point, but there's still some form of not full trust in there with Josh Jacobs.
Hmm.
And putting Bijan out there would just be a massive, massive gain for him. I believe he was a California kid whenever he came over to Texas, so he'd be going back over to that realm. Or no, he's Arizona, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yep, he was Arizona. I knew it was somewhere getting out that way. So yeah, that's where I would see it, taking these teams that don't really need an offensive addition, that or outside of the fantasy players, is a little bit different, but I would
Yeah.
that'd be kind of exciting for me to see him join in with
That'd
Carr,
be. It
Waller,
would be
and Adams.
exciting. The only reason why I don't feel like they would go the running back routes is because, well, the past couple weeks they finally started to kind of give him the rock a little bit more. And I mean, he's not a slouch. He's a very serviceable running back. He's
Oh
top
yeah,
talent whenever they give him the opportunities, and he's looked really good when they've given him those opportunities. They could go running back route. Granted, this is they would probably go somewhere else than offense altogether. But if they
Right.
were to go, I feel like if you end up having a solid running back like Josh Jacobs and the backup running back was Zamir, um, you've and Derek Carr's locked in for an extremely long time. I think looking at open spreading the field more with another top tier wide receiver
Mm.
alongside Devontae Adams, getting yourself some Jackson Smith and Yigba. I
Ooh.
think that stack would just open up the field so much for Devontae, who's already looked really good on that team
Hmm.
when he's being thrown the ball. Hunter Henry.
Hunter
Hunter,
Henry's there.
give.
Yeah.
Oh, is it
Y'all has
Henry?
got
What?
Mac. Yeah. Hunter Henry
Then
or
I'm.
Hunter Renfro. Sorry. Hunter
Thank you.
Renfro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Golly.
yeah, yeah,
Hunter
yeah,
Renfro. I
yeah.
was thinking
I
of
was
Matt
like, no, Hunter
Hollins.
Henry's a tight end. I'm trying to. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hunter Renfro.
Clearly it's
Hunter
late over here if you
Renfro's.
can't tell.
Yeah. No, Hunter Renfro's good, but he's not another. I just feel like if you have two crazy talents like that,
Hmm.
if your quarterback is mid tier, kind of like Derek Carr is, could really open things up. So I don't know. That's where I think that they would go if they were to pick an offensive weapon, but also when Bijan's on the board, I mean,
Well, I think
you don't get
we
that
will
talent.
have the Bijan off of there. We can say if we thought this was going here, Bijan's gone at this point. So the number
Yep.
3 would be another super interesting one. We have the
Yeah.
Detroit Lions here. This team has got the offensive talent out the wazoo on everything but the quarterback.
Yep.
And everything but the quarterback is the issue that they have. And this would be it's a great class for them to get in there. It's going to be super
Hmm.
interesting because this team could still be in this round in the top 5 picks at the end of the year. If you watch our show, we are super high on Detroit. We think that they have the ability to make a push in this wild card area. And who knows, the way that they've handled some of their games, maybe they can. But right now, at this point, this is where the best quarterback on their board is who they should be taking. I'm interested in seeing what that's going to be
Hmm.
because of this quarterback class. But the best one left on there for me would be Bryce Young. So they'd be taking Bryce Young to complement Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Hawkinson, the Jameson Williams that they just got, who haven't really seen
Yep.
anything of him yet due to injury. That would just be setting up insanely dynamite offense. That would be super excited. And I would hate myself because
And
I just traded away Bryce Young in a league. If he went there,
yeah,
I might
yes.
kick myself a little bit.
Hmm. No, I agree with you. I think he is the best quarterback this year coming out of the class, and it's not just talent wise; it's composure wise. I feel like he has that NFL mindset already. Even whenever you watch the game that they just lost to Tennessean over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
I was watching that in a bar with my wife, who's not a football fan, and she was like, "Are we really going to watch football again?" And she even enjoyed that game a little bit because it was just a great one.
Yes,
But
that was.
uh, you just watch his composure throughout the entire thing. Whenever they missed the field goal, his reaction to it, he's very calm, very level-headed, never freaked out during the game.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee's a very solid opponent. Losing to them is not, it's not like they lost because their offense did terrible anyways.
Right.
But it was just he's very composed when he beat Texas, going down that final drive to get the field goal. Just doesn't make unforced errors very often, and he's
Mm-hmm.
mobile enough. He's got good mobility, but he's just a good decision maker. And so I agree. I think that him with Amon-Ra St. Brown, um, uh, freaking James Williams, right? I'm drawing a blank
Jameson
again.
Williams.
James
Yep.
Williams, and then DeAndre Swift. I mean,
Yeah, that'd be
that would
me.
be vicious.
And the addition of what they've been able to do on the defensive side, even though they've thrown up the points like crazy, I think it'd be just a ton of fun to watch them
Yep.
go around. So the next one here, we've got the infamous Houston Texans.
Hmm.
Um, they're they're super interesting to me here because they need a lot. Let's just say that they need a lot of like a little bit of everything, and that includes the defensive side. So, you know, we always do we do our draft boards whenever things are coming out, and it's always a fun one to try to pick out what Houston's going to be doing. And they actually have according to this one, because they got from Cleveland the fourth and the fifth and the sixth pick. So as of now, they're sitting pretty to make some of those big moves. Who would you say see them getting in there? And let's just do one of theirs because I don't want to focus too much on the Texans. One of those two picks, say it's an offensive player here. What do
Yeah.
you see them
I don't know.
going for?
I think it'd be fun to talk about both of them real quick.
Okay,
You are
yeah.
building out the draft. We can do them, then hit up the next pick, and then go back to them and just be a little shorter on that one.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've got an aging wide receiver starter with Brandon Cooks, so they're going to need to fill that role. And I think that the Davis Mills test has kind of come and gone. I like him. I was really hoping he was going to be better
Yeah.
this year, but he looked decent last year, and it's kind of like he's regressed a little bit this year from watching him.
Yeah.
And maybe it's due to, a worse offensive line, more pressure, whatever. He's just not really getting the job done. For me, this is where a CJ Stroud would come off the board.
Yeah, if they could snag CJ Stroud at that point, yeah.
At that point, because like I said, I think it'd be Bijan, wide receiver,
And
Jackson,
then CJ.
Bryce Young, and then CJ. So
Yeah.
for me, and let me say this also, spoiler alert, I'm not going to say who it is. I do not think that CJ is the next best quarterback off of this board, but
I'm there with you.
I think that's who they would pick.
We'll also touch on that. Being this is number 2, we'll go over a few of these things down the line. I'm sure they'll start coming up, especially when we do some player videos. So on this part, I'd actually kind of take a little bit of a player that you were going with earlier. This is where I think they would go with a Jackson Smith and Jigba. They add some weapons in there. And like you said, just strictly based off if I'm looking at this here, the team after them, I don't think they're going to be worried about a quarterback going. And so a wide receiver may want to go. And so with that, we'll flow into that for my reasoning there. Number 5, the undefeated Eagles, by way of the Saints. I know whenever they made that big AJ, all those big trades and whatnot, I remember being in Vegas whenever all that was going down. But I remember thinking them betting against New Orleans, pretty much saying, hey, we think you're going to suck next year, was genius, because they really aren't going to be that good. That division is way worse than we thought, but I think New Orleans is not going to be that good. I think this will still pan out to be a top 8 pick for them when all things are said and done. But with this, clearly they don't need a quarterback going on here. They've invested money into the wide receivers already with either AJ Brown and Devontae Smith going on. You could go another wide receiver here and just freaking be hog wild. I don't think Miles Sanders is the deal for them, is a long-term guy. Kenneth Gainwell, I think, is a great backup. He'll be an awesome change of pace backup guy. But when everything is done out of here, and I'm going to maybe throw some people off with the running back that I'm selecting, I think it might be Zach Evans at that spot.
Yeah, we're lined up on this one as well.
Oh, really?
Yep, that's exactly what he's got. Better hands than Jahmyr Gibbs does. He's a little bit more explosive, and and
he's been saving himself for the NFL. I mean, that sounds silly, but I mean, that's his whole thing. It's like his workload, and Judkins over in Ole Miss is doing a great job at capitalizing on the fact that whatever it is, Zach Evans just doesn't want to wear himself out for the NFL. But that's where his spotlight's been ever since he was in TCU. You get maybe a little bit of a head case to worry about, mentally there, something between the ears, but I think that would be a great landing spot, and that would just make them even more wicked. I would hate to see that as a Cowboy fan.
I think that's really the only missing link. I think you got Devonta Smith, a couple years ago, and he's going to be a stud. You can already see it. AJ Brown
Goddard,
already is
AJ
a
Brown
stud.
is just a beast.
Goddard's locked up. I
Yeah,
mean, their passing weapons are already there. They don't need anything else. Jalen Hurts is amazing, and Miles Sanders is good, and Kenneth Gainwell's good. But I
you can
think
release
Zach
some of that.
Evans,
Yeah, release some of the. I don't even know if you have much draft invested
if
in Miles Sanders
Bijan were
money
to be,
wise.
if Bijan were able to
If
fall to
Bijan
the
were there
year,
at that point,
oh my
I would
gosh.
hate it
Yeah,
personally.
no,
But
I absolutely agree. And the reason why I went quarterback at 4 is because I didn't think they would take quarterback or wide receiver. So it was the exact same logic as you had, just
yeah,
reversed. And so at number 6 for
number two for
Houston,
Houston.
or yeah, number 2 for Houston. Let me pull this up here. So we already had Jackson Smith and Juba be taken off the board on my list. Uh, it gets a little trickier because outside of Brandon Cooks, they don't really have many weapons at all, and
Right.
he's aging out. So it's not like they're needing an insane route runner or deep for their. They're kind of needing everything. Um, so just based off of what's available on the board, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like personally. I kind of like Jordan Addison,
Yes. Yeah, I like Jordan Addison a lot there.
and I think USC in general is looking insane. Um, but if you watched his game this past week that they lost, um, it kind of just really emphasized that. A lot of my rankings this week are going off of the games that I watched over the weekend, reaffirming
Recency
players that I
bias.
liked. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But just watching them, and it's like some of these guys just look like they're NFL ready, and I think that I mean, he's fast as all get out, and
No, he is. He
yeah,
he
he's
he is my number two wide receiver on this draft class as of now. Obviously, things change so much, especially once the NFL season ends. And you start looking at these guys, but where I
yeah,
would be going on here, and this is another one that I could easily change a lot. Personally, it's not my next quarterback on the board, but for where everybody's got him projected right now, I think this is where you might see a Will Levis go to them
hmm
on that quarterback side. I personally, like I said, don't care for Will Levis as much as of now. Haven't done a crazy deep investigation on his, but have caught plenty of past games and what he has been playing outside of his injury. I don't like it a whole
yeah,
lot, but it seems like a guy that they would go to because he does have that arm. He is able to make these throws, as you hear frequently whenever you watch his games. So and he's got the size. Not to say Davis Mills doesn't. It's almost like a more polished and more just generally better quarterback version of Davis Mills, kind of. So I don't want to keep lingering on that too long here. So then we get to another team, number 7. I think we're going to get through the top 10 here today. So number 7, we're going to the Seattle Seahawks, and this is by way of the Denver Broncos that they get this top 10 pick. This is clearly we've seen the Geno Smith show there. There, Kenneth Walker is starting to shine like crazy as we thought he would. He's got the opportunity, unfortunately, due to injury with Penny there. But I'm curious to see what you think in regards to like what they could use in this position there. You got DK Metcalf locking it down on the wide receiver side, but is that it? Like, are you confident with Lockett going it much further?
That's the thing is Lockett's also kind of getting a little bit older. But the fact of the matter is Geno Smith is also older. He's not a dinosaur. But I don't think that they traded Russ with intentions to keep Geno as their
No.
franchise guy.
I think
And this is a good
Lynch is
quarterback
going to start
class, man.
making their he's going to start trying to make his way in there.
Yep. Um, and honestly, we're talking about the mobile quarterbacks and dual threat quarterbacks. That's a good thing to have, but I feel like a team like Seattle, uh, I feel like just a solid pocket passer would do them the best service, like a Joe Burrow type guy. And that's why I think that Will Levis is a good drop for this spot.
Yeah.
I think DK Metcalf's insane. And if you can get someone that's just accurate and a good pro style quarterback to get him the ball and to get Tyler Lockett the ball, I mean, or old
Yeah.
Big Montana Will Disley the ball every once in a while. I feel like this is a pretty solid spot for him.
Yeah, speaking of Will Disley, man, he has been like one of my favorite best ball ads. Just because
Love him.
he's always finds his way. Not saying he's producing huge, massive points, but he
For the
keeps it
value.
exciting when you're watching that. It's like, oh shoot, oh
Hmm.
man. But
Yeah.
yeah, where I would go here on this realm is clearly I've already taken Will Levis off the board.
Yep.
And I don't think that they would go for a quarterback here. I'm thinking maybe that Lynch buys his time and they may go for a quarterback later.
Hmm.
If everybody's gone off the board on my side there, I think there's other better quarterbacks, but I don't think that gets up to that point. So I think that they're going to go wide receiver in this realm, and maybe go down the route of finding somebody that can help out DK, distract a little bit, add
Hmm.
another big body target in there, not as fast, but get some Keyshawn Butte from
Yeah. Yep.
LSU over
Yep.
there would be kind of fun.
Wide receiver university.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going with LSU on that.
Right.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to see that combo of DK and him, especially if they can get a quarterback in there and shoot with this draft class. You might be able to get you mentioned earlier, Hendon Hooker. You could probably get a Hendon Hooker later, in there. Sure,
I like
or
him.
even if you want to go down to we're going off script here, but go later in there, find another smaller kind of QB that is exciting. The Jaron Hall out of BYU kid.
I was
Uh,
looking right at him. I didn't
yeah,
know if you
you
were going to
could.
go with him or if you're going to go with the Djokovic.
No, no, man. I'm loving. I'm not as big on Jerkovic, but Djokovic, and I hate saying small because I think Hall is over 6 foot. I don't know. We'll see once that all the combine stuff comes out. But he's very exciting. And that could be a guy that you could get later on. You're not going to unless he just somehow blows up even more. But
Hmm.
yeah, don't want to get too distracted on here. I think a Keishon Butte at that point. So then we got number 8 overall pick here as of today would be the Steelers.
Hmm.
Well, clearly we know
Another
they've
hard one.
invested. Yeah, they've invested already in the quarterback. They've always done a really good job at getting wide receivers to produce for them in their first few years.
Hmm.
Um, and that seems like what they have right now is a bunch of wide receivers that are able to produce, but nothing too consistent. Obviously, they got Najee Harris, so I'll take the lead on this one. I think they would go with another. I think you go another wide receiver here in this realm, and it's where it starts to get a little thin. On that, I don't want to say thin. I actually have a lot of guys in this class that I like a lot. And right now, bumping up, I think you could would be way infinitely early, but a player like Marvin Mims would actually fit really well
Yeah.
with what they have, giving a consistent, sure-handed guy for Pickett to go to. And obviously you got Pickens and adding more to that group. You've got Fryermuth. You've got pretty much got the young offensive setup. They
That's why they're
wouldn't even
hard.
go. They would go defense clearly, I believe, on
Yeah.
this realm.
It's
But
that's why it's
for the
hard
fun
is
of this,
because
it's you would
yeah.
see, man. You just imagine Mims joining them with that.
Hmm.
That would be, yeah. I think it would be a blast to watch.
Yeah. Who do you take off the field for Mims?
Yeah, I honestly, I would.
Because George Pickens, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, like whose spot
I
does
don't
he
like
take?
Clay Chase Claypool that much. He'll
Yeah.
boom for you. He's a fun best ball ad, but his hands are not consistent enough. He's got the
Yeah.
body
The
to be a
problem is
number one.
that's the thing is he's such a massive and I just traded him away in a package deal. Got myself Amon Ra, St. Brown in there, not to
Ooh,
brag, but
ooh.
no, he really does have all like the physical attributes to be a stud, but I won't talk too much about Chase Claypool.
Yeah,
That's why they're so hard because Najee, in my honest opinion, where they're weakest at, I don't know what their quarterback is going to do yet, so I can't say. But they just drafted one, so they're going to ride with him for at least a few years. Um, Running back is
is
where they're weakest
Najee.
at,
You
and
think
it's
that, yeah,
Najee
that's the
Harris.
weak spot?
But you can't. I mean, they just used a top pick on Najee Harris,
I know.
and he just doesn't look. I mean, unless he's getting massive volume, we're talking fantasy here. He's doesn't. I think he's like running like 3 yards a carry this year, maybe less,
It's
and
awful for
it's
especially where people were drafting him.
And then
Dynasty and redraft.
Jalen Warren comes in, and every game that they've used him, he's ran better than
It's
Najee.
it's perplexing. It's confusing.
Yeah. So
Um,
that being said, I don't think they would pick a running back because of that. So I think I'd go either Marvin Mims or Kayshon Boutte here. I think is probably where they would go.
Gotcha. So then for the sake of keep on moving here, we got, we get through the top 10. Number 9 would be Arizona Cardinals. Once again, another offensive, loaded team, but hey, for the fun of it, what do you think they would go with here if they had to select offense?
Definitely, I think running back.
Yeah.
James Conner's not long for this world, that being the NFL world. Um,
Whoa,
yes, I meant the
man.
NFL world to be clear. And to fit their play style, you've got probably and it's very debatable, but the most mobile quarterback in Kyler Murray,
Oh yeah.
just in terms of shiftiness. Like he's just the hardest quarterback to
He wants
tackle.
to prove
You
constantly he's the most athletic guy on the
most
field.
athletic person out there. I
Like
think he intentionally
always.
doesn't
He
throw the ball
does the same
sometimes.
moves whenever I watched him in
Mm-hmm.
high school. He pulls the
Mm-hmm.
same stunts and can't do it as much in the
Yep.
pros, but it looks like
But he
he's still
does
like
sometimes.
he does sometimes. It makes guys look silly, but there's
Yeah.
times I'm like, dude, you're not
But
in
but
Texas
you've
anymore in high
got
school.
yeah, but you've got DeAndre Hopkins there. You got Marquise Brown. Now you've got
Anderson,
uh, Anderson. So they're not going to go
Rondale
wide
Moore.
receiver here. Yeah, Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't go wide receiver here. I'd probably say a Jameer Gibbs, maybe even a Tank Bigsby type player
I, th-
right here.
I think Jameer
Um,
Gibbs, if yeah, from what's available on the board, that's where I would go.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking they would pick. It just makes the most sense.
Yeah, and that kind of guy
He's a
I
good
mean benefit
scheme.
them in
Yeah.
general. I could see them taking him in the actual draft, maybe in the second
Yep.
round.
Good
Uh,
scheme running back, got good hands.
mm-hmm.
I still think Zach Evans probably is a better pass catching back, but Jameer Gibbs got good hands. Is one of those guys that kind of can get out of the pocket and then find some open space and be a scapegoat, which they really need right now.
Yes.
So yeah, I think
Until
that's where he
until
would go.
Kyler can show that he actually his panic mode is run, and I feel like his
Hmm.
panic mode he needs a reliable check down.
Yep,
And hopefully he can just get out of that panic mode and be more relaxed. But just seems like he is too jittery in that pocket sometimes,
very
especially
much.
for the years that he's already been in the NFL. And perfect timing here. We've got a couple minutes left, so we'll go to the final number 10 overall on here. It would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, Clearly, they've thrown money at all these different positions. They went out and got guys through free agency. Got Evan Ingram on tight end. Got Kirk wide receiver. You've got James and ETN right now in your backfield, and obviously Lawrence as your go to. So what would be your forced selection if they were having to go that route?
Yeah, in my opinion, absolutely, it would be a wide receiver. I'm vetting something real quick, a quick stat that I'm trying
Mm,
to. Yep, that's what I thought.
I like this
And
bringing
this wide
numbers.
receiver, yes, this wide receiver very well at the end of the year, uh, or not the end of the year. Well, maybe at the end of the year, but once pro time comes and they get into the pros and start playing, he might end up being the best one. Absolute burner, insane speed.
Mm.
Um, Threw up the most ridiculous stat line in college football I've ever seen this last week. Like I said, a lot of my picks are being made off of this last week, but these are all top guys as is. And I just watched him against what was supposed to be one of the best defenses in Alabama, Jalen Hyatt. That
Hyatt.
guy is an
Ooh.
absolute monster.
This
I watched him against Alabama this last weekend. I've heard a lot about him. This is his stat line this past weekend: 6 receptions for 207 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I mean
And
that's a
he
stat
made
line.
it and he made it look easy. I mean, he runs a 4-3 even. A four
Whoa.
three even. This dude is a monster.
No, he's in
I think
NFL loves speed.
I don't know where
Love
Tennessee
speed.
came from. I don't know what their draft class looked like because I don't pay that much attention to him normally. In fact, I'm going to look up to see what he was even ranked in high school.
Jalen
Four
Hyatt.
star. Yeah,
And I was going to
just
say, I
a
think
just a
he's
4 star.
and and I think it's funny here. You're mentioning you're mentioning Tennessee with this because I would go wide receiver as well,
Mm-hmm.
but and I would go a wide receiver from Tennessee,
Oh,
but I am not
interesting.
going Hyatt. He's the 3 star, six
Mm-hmm.
three, and he's been injured this year, so his chance to break out. Um, but this would be Cedric Tillman.
Yeah.
I have him above. You got the Quentin Johnson's the guy the higher names.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
And
think
he
of
was
the
the other
other
guy I was thinking about in this pick as well,
man.
Quentin Johnson.
I love Quentin Johnson. Another there's a bunch of guys, and honestly, this wide receiver class is so freaking exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Just to look through, it's so deep. You have some high top end talent, but then you have a very dense core, and I think Cedric Tillman can be in that top end talent, on there. But he's the intro to this such a dense core of just solid players. I think Tillman would be an awesome addition there. Hyatt would be exciting. I love to see where he's gonna come
And
combine time, end of year, all this. Can he ride
this is
this
a
wave of
Devy
putting up a
podcast.
massive number?
I'm telling you right now, if he's on the board when it's my turn to pick, because I know he's not on anybody's Devy's lists, Jalen Hyatt is at the top of my rookie draft
Until
list.
next week when your bias is reset and you've got
Switch, yeah. Well, I've looked at Hyatt throughout the year because he's been good, and I watched that game and I was like,
he's filled
this
in for.
guy's
I mean, he's
making them
taken
look like
advantage of the
fools.
Cedric Tillman being
Mm-hmm.
out. He has been the owner of that, and I was super curious. We got a couple. We only have about a minute left on our
Yeah.
unupgraded membership here, but
Yeesh.
I was curious on seeing what Hendon Hooker was going to be able to do going up. Without him and just going up against massive competition. Hooker's looking outstanding. That team just in general is looking exciting. I just want to see if they can how
That's
fast they
spoiler
can.
alert. That's spoiler alert about how I think CJ Stroud might not be the number 3 best
Oh yeah,
quarterback on that list. I
Hooker
think that
passed you
Hendon
up for
Hooker
you.
might. I think Hendon Hooker might. This is just a maybe, but he might be. He might be
Yeah,
better.
it's fun. Hypotheticals at this time. We got once you start diving into film, these things get a little bit more clear. You can see the consistency. We're
Mm-hmm.
more than halfway through the college season, I believe,
Yeah.
about halfway through. So then you should get a good idea, and then just see what these guys can do consistently the rest of the way.
Yep.
Man, that was fun. Definitely a windy route and very a weird hypotheticals, forcing everybody to take a fantasy relevant player. But it was fun. It was especially seeing. It wasn't like going through your top 10. It was kind of going through a team need combined with a top 10 almost. And so definitely listen in with us, everybody. Thank you for listening, watching this video. Stay tuned. We'll come up with some different things. We want to be putting out more Devy videos, maybe some video breakdowns, but obviously rankings, and just start a discussion on guys that y'all like. But throw in comments if you want us to talk about certain players and where we see. We'll probably be coming out with our overall kind of the overall Devy class, 2023 to 2025 rankings would be the
Yeah.
next video that we do, just to give a broad spectrum of guys to be talking about and keeping an eye out for. But yeah.
Yeah, and also in the Devy world, it's a lot bigger than the pro world. You've got high school and you've got college. If there's
Mhm.
guys that y'all are paying attention to, we can't know everybody.
Hell
Send them our
no.
way. Tell them to look them up. Maybe we'll talk about them in one of our videos. And
Yes.
this main purpose of this whole segment is, to keep your eye on players that are coming into the NFL either this next year or soon to come years. So I'm going to end every video just with a name to look
You got
out
10
for.
seconds.
And so just remember the name Quinn Ewers. Keep your eyes
Oh
out for
God,
him.
everybody
And
knows Quinn Ewers now. Thank you for listening, everybody, for our in-depth knowledge clearly about obvious players.
yes,
Bye.
peace.